that's what made me denounce religion my whole life. Because
Wow.
I was like, who makes any human, who gives any human the right to say that my religion is right and yours is wrong? Because you look at
Right.
any religion, they all say that, except for Hinduism. It's not really like a religion, so to speak. It's a tradition. But
Yeah.
the Muslims say that their religion is the only right one. The Jews say that theirs is the only right one. The Christians say theirs is the only right one. And
Mhm.
even within the Christians, they fight amongst each other which one is a real right one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time. I am here with my good friend Arjuna again. Say something, Arjuna, so the camera will like pick you up on Zoom.
What's going on, everybody? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Hope everything's good. See my cat in there? He just decided to plop here, so he's gonna join the conversation. Let me see
Yeah.
his tail.
Aw. What's his name?
Kaza.
Oh, Kaza, I like it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to have you back on the channel, of course, every time. And thank you for agreeing to do this specific video. So this isn't going to be, I mean, it'll be a little magical related, but I recently started, or I'm starting this sort of what will be a series of interviews, interviewing some friends of mine and people I know that grew up in different religions, whether an extreme sect of a religion or just, whatever religion, and that are now into the occult in whatever capacity that they're interested in it. So if
Hmm.
any viewers that are watching this know of you already, they know that you are into the occult, or have been previously, maybe not as much just right now, but you have that interest and sort of magical talent, that gift, I guess.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna just kind of start it off. I have like some questions, but I will kind of begin with the religion you grew up in. So you grew up Hindu,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
Um,
So,
Go
like,
ahead, yeah.
oh, go ahead. What's your question?
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, are there, because in Christianity, there's different denominations, different branches of Christianity. Is that sort of
Hmm.
a thing in Hinduism at all?
It kind of is. There's different branches, and I'll start kind of by explaining where I came from as far as my religious upbringing, and then answer this question simultaneously.
Okay.
So, in Hinduism, there is a I don't know if it's a one-to-one comparison of like Lutheran, Protestant, Methodist, and all those branches, but there's kind of where you worship one branch of the divine. Some people worship Krishna, some people worship Vishnu, some people worship Shiva. There's
Mm,
different sect. I don't even know if they're really sects. It's just there's different choices that people tend to go down. But
mm,
there was something called the caste system, which
mm,
is actually a British invention. When they colonized India, they were there for like 200 years and they kind of changed things around to kind of control the population. So the caste system is really a British invention, but it still exists to this day to a large degree. And it's more of like a class system
mm,
rather than a religious system true in the true sense.
mm,
So I'm born as a Brahmin, which is the top caste, so to speak, from the hierarchy perspective. But really, what it just means truly is the class of people who perform the rituals, who perform the prayers, who are the spiritual people, the wise men, the saints, the sages
mm.
of the people. So that's how Brahmins are considered. But
Okay.
when it comes to how I was raised with that, we were raised to do prayers, certain prayers, very ritualistic prayers, and they would often tell us, my parents, the people at the temple would tell us that we have to do these things, we have to do X, Y, and Z, like, and I'm gonna be honest, like as a youth, I didn't understand. Like I'm a very defiant kind of person, not necessarily defiant, but like inquisitive. So if
Hmm.
I don't know the true purpose of something, I'm not going to really want to do it or even like to do it because I need to know that I'm doing something out of my own free will, not because I am forced into blind obedience. And that's one of my biggest things that I am defiant about. Like I will not be blindly obedient to anything. If
Mm,
someone tells me to do something, I will not do it unless I know the purpose behind it.
mhm.
So that kind of shaped my initial, and I'm talking about the first 5, 6, 7 years of life
Okay.
as far as Hinduism.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I get that sense about you. I mean, we're alike in that way as far as not, blindly following something. So I will kind of just go with some questions. So okay, do you still practice Hinduism at all? Like, do you still go to the temple? Do you still
Mhm.
just do any of the things that you grew up with?
I wouldn't say I'm religiously following Hinduism, like in
Hmm.
the sense of that entire doctrine, but I do often go to the temple. I do often pray to the Hindu gods. So I consider myself a Hindu first and foremost, but I'm more realistically a spiritualist
Hmm.
in the sense like I'll go to church too. I don't care.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
I like what Jesus stood for.
Yeah.
I appreciate some of the messages, but then I do find myself, like questioning, I'm not going to accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to go that extent,
Hmm.
but I will acknowledge that he had great teachings,
Yeah.
and I like those teachings. So
Yeah.
that kind of, I'm a spiritualist, but yes, I do practice my Hinduism.
Okay. Okay, cool. Just wondering. Yeah. And so what would you say were the best and the worst things about your religious upbringing?
Well, that's a good question. I have to think about that because I can't say there's really like worst, but I will say
Mm,
that to somebody who's watching this in English most likely has exposure to Christianity. So I'll
mm,
relate this in that sense. So in Hinduism we have what's called rakshasas, which
mm,
are basically demons or bad spirits,
mm,
and they exist in a realm kind of parallel to hell, if I had to make some kind of comparison.
mm,
So we have very graphic descriptions of those and like visuals too.
mm,
Like you open up a book, they will depict something, and maybe you can put a picture of it on screen if you come to it
mm.
during editing. But they're
Yeah.
very scary creatures, like
Okay.
very scary looking creatures. So I would be scared, terrified of those at 4 or 5 years old. I
Mm.
was terrified of those things.
Aw.
So I would say that was like probably the worst aspect of it. I
Okay.
remember 3 years old, 4 years old. I was very young. This is one of my first core memories. Like this is how
Mm,
young I was. This is how early of a memory this was. Like
mhm,
I remember being so scared in the dark that there was a demon on the wall
mm,
watching me.
hmm.
And it was just like, I don't know. It's kind of
Yeah.
traumatizing for a child that young.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Man. So what about the best
So that
thing?
was the worst.
Yeah, what would the
Yeah.
best thing be?
So best, you know, I don't know. It's like I like the unity
Mhm,
in the sense that there was a lot of people that gathered and we became family friends and we became lifelong friends over that. That's cool. The best
yeah.
experience. But aside from that, it's like I don't have any like praise this religion is just so
Mhm.
amazing that I will always remember this memory to the grave. Like I don't have anything like that, unfortunately.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, not unfortunately, just ask the question to get your perspective on it. Um,
Yeah.
so you kind of already touched on this, but at what age did you begin to did you start to question things, like question sort of the truth of what the messages you're being told, or just, whatever you started to question, and how old were you when you started to do that?
I have an exact time frame
Wow.
because first grade I went to a Catholic school.
Okay.
I don't know if people know Indians love private schools. Education is very important to us. So
Hmm.
my parents put me in a private school. It was a Catholic school.
Hmm.
So we would go to mass once a week, like in the middle of school. I think it was on Wednesday. I don't know if it's Catholic or Lutheran or I don't know what branch it was. It
Hmm.
could be something else. But I remember we would read the Bible, like one kid's version of the Bible,
Hmm.
and we would be told stories of it. And one thing that made me question all religions, and this was first grade, mind you,
Mm,
is that you may worship no God but me because I am a jealous God, or something like that. It was like
yeah,
that one part of the Bible, one of the commandments where I am the only God, and if you worship anyone else, you're going to
yeah,
hell.
yeah.
Imagine telling that to a Hindu first grader
Mm,
who is worshiping another God at home,
right. Yeah.
multiple gods at home. That's what made me denounce religion my whole life because
Wow.
I was like, who makes any human who gives any human the right to say that my religion is right and yours is wrong? Because you look at
Right.
any religion, they all say that, except for Hinduism. It's not really like a religion, so to speak. It's a tradition. But
Yeah.
the Muslims say that their religion is the only right one. The Jews say that theirs is the only right one. The Christians say theirs is the only right one. And
Mhm.
even within the Christians, they fight amongst each other which one is a real right one. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So did that is what made me question every single religion for my entire life.
Yeah.
So that also shaped my ability to see how they're all right, but I also see how they're all wrong.
Right. Yeah. What a conflict to have as like a first grader. What an interesting
Mhm,
perspective. Because I mean, I also went to a church school growing up, and we had chapel every morning before class. But at going home, like
mhm,
I had the same religion. And I mean, I questioned at a young age, but it wasn't like I was exposed to these other gods or these other deities. That
mhm,
I didn't get exposed to other religions really until like middle school, maybe not seriously, anyways. So yeah,
mhm,
that's interesting. It's a really young age to sort of have that thought, but also very valid, because like,
mhm,
and it's interesting your parents put you in that school, and so you developed that perspective on it, and were able to sort of see through it right away. Um,
mhm.
were there a lot of other like Hindu kids, or were there other, like a diversity of religions at that school? Do you know? Or typically they're mostly like
I can't
Catholic
remember.
or whatever. Yeah, that's okay.
I just remember this was in South Florida,
Oh, okay.
and there might have been other races, other I can't I was the only Indian person. I know that for sure. I was the
Okay.
only Asian person for sure. So I'm not sure if there was any other religions.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Hispanic kid I remember, but he might have been Catholic Christian. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of Hispanic people are Catholics.
sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
about it.
Yeah, just wondering. Um,
Yeah.
so so we'll go into, let's see. You already kind of described how your current spiritual beliefs are. And then so when did you begin to develop a curiosity outside of religion, like into the occult in whatever capacity, whether like astrology or crystals? I don't know what your first sort of like spiritual
Mhm,
introduction to spirituality was. But when did you start to sort of have this fascination for the unknown, pretty much?
mhm. So astrology is actually a big part of Hinduism.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, Vedic astrology, you
Right.
study that. I think you're pretty very good at it actually.
I know it a
So
little bit. I don't know.
yeah, you're pretty good.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Anyway, so here's the thing, right? Because I was like 6 years old, 7 years old,
Mhm.
and I was in India, and my mom had me and my sister, not the youngest, the one that's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
She had our astrology read, and there was a little booklet that the astrologer wrote. He assigned all these things, and he got a lot of things right, but he got a whole bunch of things wrong because I remember having this book and I would refer to it a lot
Hmm.
because I would be very curious. And I'm telling you, I was like 6 or 7 years old. The first time I went to India, I'm sorry, no, I was in third grade.
So like 8 years old.
And yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I was old enough to obviously read.
Mhm.
And I'd be flipping through this book over the course of a few years, and I'd think to myself, some of this is wrong. This doesn't make sense. Like some of this is very wrong. Then it come to find out that we realize this years later that the guy did the astrology wrong. He thought I was born in India, so he used the Indian time zone.
Mm.
So that's why some of the things were completely wrong.
Mm.
So then we find out. much later on, there's different things. But here's the moment that really skewed my direction, my path. I have a family friend. It was actually my dad's friend growing up. He moved to Texas, like Brenham College Station area. I'm in Houston, so it's like an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
So he come down every other week, and he would just hang out with us. And one day he did an astrology report. This is what he does as on the side. He's very well versed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me a this I remember this was in 2011, and he gave me a very specific date. I'm sorry, no, this was 2009.
Okay.
I was living in San Antonio at the time. He gave me a very specific date, and he said something major was going to happen on that date. I
Hmm.
had that filed away in the back of my mind. I didn't really think much of it, but I ended up going through whatever 3, 4, 5, 6 months, however long that was, and I wasn't really paying attention to that date, but in the back of my mind, it was there. And then all of a sudden, some major life changes started happening, and I ended up moving back to Houston on that specific date.
Whoa.
I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's crazy," because this was in the middle of a school year.
Hmm.
Not I didn't even finish the school year.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's one thing if that date was like at the end of the school year and I moved back from college for the summer. Like that would be just a coincidence that happened to line up. But this was in
Right.
the middle of the school year.
Hmm.
So that's too coincidental to be just mere statistical
Right.
chance being viable. Like there's something definitely deeper going on there.
Sure.
So at that point, I realized, okay, this astrology thing got to be crazy. I mean, this got to be real. So I start getting into it. I start looking up my nakshatra. I start looking up the sun sign, moon sign. I start delving really deep into that.
Hmm.
So that was my process there. So
Okay.
as you ask your next question, I'm gonna turn my video off, and my cat wants to leave.
Okay. So my next question, I guess currently, do you follow the Western astrology more so than the Eastern astrology? Like the Vedic astrology now currently, do you refer to like tropical astrology at all? Or I wasn't expecting to ask this question, but while we're on the subject,
Hmm.
like and if you've looked at the tropical astrology, do you identify with one system more than the other?
You know, I don't think I've gotten that deep into it.
It's okay.
I definitely am more well versed in Western astrology,
Hmm.
aside from the nakshatras, which I
Hmm.
definitely know a lot more about that. Obviously, that's uh, Vedic, but
Can
honestly, I
you
don't even
explain
know
what
that.
could you explain what
Mhm.
those are really quick just for viewers?
Yeah, so a nakshatra basically is, man, I don't even know how to describe that because it's
Mhm.
like there is an additional type of sign called the star sign or something. That's what we refer to it as.
Okay.
And so in Western astrology, you're born into a sun sign. Same with Eastern. And then you also have a moon sign and rising sign. We have that in Eastern too. But
Mhm.
there's an additional sign, which is the star sign to
Mhm.
the nakshatra. Mine is called Ashlesha, or in Tamil, we call it Ayilyam. And that's, I honestly don't even know how to describe that aside from star sign. That's how it was taught to me.
Yeah, so that's a good basic understanding. So just for people that
Hmm.
have no idea what that word is.
Hmm.
And maybe I can like take some editing and look it up and give a little bit more of a detailed description later on or something, for those that are curious and for myself.
Put up a screenshot while I'm talking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, so so you touched on that there were demons, and what was the word that you called them as, or that you called them?
It's called Rakshasa.
Rakshasa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously that exists in the Hindu belief and stuff. So
Uh,
so you got into astrology. So what led to your discovery of magic, of
hmm.
energy
So there was a book I read 2009, the year that I came back to Houston,
work? Okay.
and it was a book that my mom had bought like 6 years prior or 5 years prior. I don't know, a long time. It was sitting in the closet, and it was sitting in the closet because I moved back to my mom's house, my parents' house, basically, and it was sitting in the closet. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna crack it open. It's called Brainwave Vibration.
Hmm.
And it's basically just talking about how the vibrations of the universe, like your brain, you could tune yourself to different vibrations. It's not really that occult
Mhm.
in any way, but it was like that segue to go
Yeah.
from my previous mindset and realizing that astrology was real and happening to find that book in my closet and then cracking it open and reading it, like all these coincidences, all these things started to line up. And then I realized that that is kind of probably real.
Mm.
And I have to preface actually, I had an experience in 2007.
Mhm.
There was a class that I was forced to take by the law,
Mm.
and in that class we watched a movie called The Secret.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people might be aware of that, but that's kind of like
Yeah.
what also gave me a uh I guess like a kickstart or a boost into that.
Sure. What an interesting movie to have to watch in that class. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, in The Secret, for those that don't know, isn't Esther Hicks in there? Um, Esther
It
Abraham
is a Hicks
Hicks.
movie.
Yeah, it is a Hicks movie. Yeah, and it's all about like law of attraction, manifestation, building your. I don't know if they refer to the word vortex in there, but Esther Hicks is all about like your vortex. So just energy work, manifestation type work. Law of attraction. Um, yeah, so that, I mean, I would consider that in the metaphysical umbrella, so
Hmm.
that's definitely a good segue because it's hard to go from like, I mean, I didn't do it either, I didn't like get out of Christianity and then immediately pick up a magic book. Like there were a
Hmm.
lot of things along the way. Like I got into astrology and then little spirit animals and then, just kind of dug deeper and deeper
Hmm.
until eventually I found your YouTube channel video with the wealth magic thing. And that was really kind of what piqued my interest in high magic, ceremonial magic to begin with. So
Hmm.
is there a space, is there like a welcome space in the Hindu religion for a cult? Like for this type of yeah, I mean, I guess not, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, how is
Me,
magic
it's
viewed?
weird.
Yeah.
It's weird because I don't think they actually call it like anything like magic, but if you think about it from the Western perspective, like when we're doing these elaborate ceremonies, isn't that a ritual? Isn't that a ritual to call upon a spirit
Hmm.
to bless us for like I think the whole religion is magic.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about, honestly.
Yeah.
And we have these elaborate, and when I say elaborate, I mean really elaborate. I don't know if this is the general word for it across India, but we call them kolam,
Hmm.
which is like a drawing of a geometric pattern that we put in the front of the house
Hmm.
during special occasions or even just in general. We put this geometric pattern and that's like a blessing or something. And it looks a lot like a crop circle.
Hmm.
It's crazy with how elaborate they are.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to spell it. Let me see if I can find it.
Or it's like a mandala a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
That's probably the more common name for it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Christianity is the same. I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, going to church and witnessing what the ceremony that priests partake in, and that, I served on the altar and stuff. I was a little altar girl, I guess, in some of my churches. And just that whole ceremony, that holiness about it is a ritual, and especially in the Catholic Church, they have the sacraments, and one of the sacraments is the transubstantiation, which is turning the body and blood of Christ into the bread and wine to then consume. Tell
Hmm.
me, convince me that that is not magic. I mean, you're not going to be able to convince me that that's not magic. Like everything about that is magic, and
Hmm.
and the way that they revere these saints too. And I love the saints, but they're spirits ultimately. You're not.
Yeah.
Yes, you're praying to the one God, the Christian God, but like you have all these other energies there. Mary is a big one in Catholicism, Mary Magdalene. And even in the occult, like a lot of people will pray or do rituals or invoke Mary too, just because
Hmm.
what she represents in her
Hmm.
holiness and in her yeah. And so it's interesting that it's just become like the occult has become for a lot of people just such a separate like denounced sort of practice when truly, like, it's in plain sight in every religion, pretty much. I mean, I don't know about every
Hmm.
religion, but in a lot of religions.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So when you first got into like your first magic book, like whether what was your first magic book, by the way?
probably Wealth Magic.
Okay, Wealth Magic,
If
yeah.
I'm being honest, I think that was the first one.
Okay. How did you find out about Wealth Magic? Oh, were you in that Facebook group?
I came after. They actually saw my video and invited me from that
Okay.
video. But no, it was actually 2016. I had this mastermind group or something. We were just like, like business minded, um, like subliminals, magic, pheromone type thing.
Right.
Uh, I didn't actually practice magic before then,
Mhm.
but one of the guys in there is very big in magic, and he was a chaos magician,
Mhm.
and so he would talk so highly of it, and it really piqued my interest. So I started getting into it, and um, he suggested magical riches,
Yeah.
but I
Which
was
we
like, I'm
did a
gonna go for
video on
gold.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I thought I would go for gold and went for wealth magic. Just went straight up because I was not a stranger to long 6 month long commitments to anything. And
Mhm.
wealth magic is kind of a 6 month. I don't know if it was longer, but it's about half a year. It's a
Yeah.
commitment.
It is. It is a commitment. Yeah, I think if you like don't miss a day, it adds up to about 6 months. But if you miss a few days here and there, it can be longer. Mine have always been longer than 6 months because I'm not. I always miss
Hmm.
a day or so in between. But yeah, so that's interesting. And I know you've had some videos on your YouTube channel about subliminals and pheromones. And I remember you were interested in that because 2016 was the year that we met too.
Hmm.
The end of 2016. So very, very interesting. Yeah. And so when you picked up that book, did you, I guess not, like you didn't have any fears or reservations about working with it since, you'd already kind of, your interest had been piqued by your friend in this
Hmm.
group. Was there anything about working with like Clowneck, the Demon of Wealth, or just anything that you've come across in magic since then that took you some time to sort of like just become comfortable with, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. Demons for sure. Just the
Yeah.
name of it.
Yeah.
The word demon has been, I don't want to say corrupted and I don't want to say negative connotation because I mean, it does have a negative connotation for a good reason,
Hmm.
especially when it's the way it's described. But part of what helped me alleviate some of the concerns is realizing that every connotation that anybody has for anything is really made by man.
Hmm.
Even
Yeah.
the words that are written in the Bible were written by man, translated by man across generations, across millennia, to the point where we have today, where the versions that we have, how can I be 100% convinced that humans along the way haven't intentionally or unintentionally changed the meaning of various things for a particular motive?
Hmm.
Before we had secular government, which is what we have now, which doesn't have religion governing the the people, it was
Right.
religiously based, and the church was the ultimate authority of governance.
Hmm.
And any government uses words to change how they want their people to believe and behave. So if they're doing this now with uh, secular government, how did they not do that with religious government? I know that they did.
Yes.
So I know within myself, I can't corroborate this with fact, but I know for certain that the Vatican has changed the meanings of certain words, maybe changed some stories ever so slightly over the millennia to make to alter the way people behave.
Hmm.
So how can we reliably say that the word demon is doesn't also fall into that category?
Hmm.
What if
Right.
they just don't want us tapping into these spirits? What if they just don't want us to access power that is
Right.
outside of the church's control? Because if we do that, we can't be controlled,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Right. Because then we're realizing our own power and taking back our
Mm-hmm.
own sovereignty. And for those
Mm-hmm.
that are curious, and I think you're already familiar with him, but Billy Carson, do you follow Forbidden
Oh
Knowledge?
yeah, I saw one of his
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to dive deeper into this rabbit hole of just like I think he has some videos specifically on the Vatican and how they've twisted things. Like he backs up his information. Like he does not
Mm-hmm.
miss. Like I have a lot of respect for Billy Carson. I actually saw him live with his Anunnaki movie premiere in New York a couple months ago, and that was so cool. He's a very well researched guy,
Mm-hmm.
but he says like he gets death threats from people that
Mm-hmm.
are like so distraught by the information that he's bringing to the table with evidence and with proof, because it's sort of stripping them of their identity that they've grown up with, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will just blindly follow what they've been told, and their families have done it for generations and traditions have been
Mm-hmm.
built around it, my own family included. I mean, if I showed my parents Billy Carson, like they would not be receptive. Maybe my dad a little bit, but like, they would. I know not to even bring it to their attention. Like they're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So but it is, yeah. I mean, and I guess that goes on in every religion, just hiding those things. So what did it take for you to get past that fear, get past any blocks around working with demons? Just doing
Yeah,
it.
it was because Wealth Magic was my first book.
Mm-hmm.
I had done 5 rituals, 6 rituals until the point where I had to work with a demon, and it was like some random demon that nobody knows about.
Mm-hmm.
So once it came time to that, I was like, okay, cool, let's just do it. I already did 6 rituals. What's going
Yeah.
to stop me from doing the 7th ritual? I'm just not going to give up. So I did it. Nothing bad
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it's all that fear is just in your head, and
Yeah.
um was there a lot of like sort of unlearning or deprogramming that you had to do in order to get into that? No. Yeah, it doesn't seem like
Not
it.
really.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a primarily, and I don't want to keep harping on Christianity, but it's like that's
Yeah.
the religion where it talks very badly about demons.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that programming to begin with. So I
Right.
didn't have to unlearn that programming.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that's good. That honestly makes it very helpful, because for me, I had a lot of like unprogramming
Hmm.
to learn and stuff, but I was curious enough to get into it, and I've said this before, but I think it really helped, knowing you beforehand, and then you being my introduction into the occult, because like if it had been some stranger on the internet, I probably would have had more concerns
Mm.
about what I was about to get into, and now I'm great friends with some of the strangers I've met on the internet through Magick. But since it was you and I knew you and trusted you and knew a little bit what you were about, I was like, okay, well, if he can do it, then it's got to be okay. But still along the way, there's been a lot of just unlearning and stuff. So I have a couple, maybe one last final question, but um, how would you say that your religious upbringing has shaped your spirituality or your magicianhood, your abilities as a magician, if any, or
Hmm.
interest in the occult?
I don't think that question really can apply,
Okay.
mostly because after that experience in first grade, I kind of just walked away from religion altogether.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Did you
I
face?
say walked away as if I was a fully sentient adult human
Right.
being, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like I would be taken to these temple ceremonies, but I would just like kind of do my own thing. Just
Yeah.
I was forced to be there. I wasn't
Right.
there at my own will. So
Sure. Yeah. So, and for future generations, do you think that, like you have kids, do you plan to raise your kids Hindu, like in that same upbringing that you had, or do you intend to be more open-minded, or just kind of let them find what they want to find spiritual wise, or have you even thought about this?
yes, yes, and I've actually already been taking my kids to the temple.
Nice.
Um, but they also go to church too. And
Hmm.
here's the thing, and I'm very, very, very proud of this. Like I didn't have to do anything. My oldest son is every single day he asks me to show a video of Krishna prayer.
Wow.
So it came from him. It didn't come from me. All I did was like expose him to it, and I want my kids to have the freedom because I was forced into certain things. I
Hmm.
want them to explore what's right for them, but I
Mhm.
will be that channel to guide them on whatever path that they choose to. It's all valid to me. I think it all tries to ultimately reach the same end goal, which is nirvana or peace or heaven, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
So whatever path someone chooses to get there to me is valid. And as long as somebody has a force that they want to utilize to achieve that end goal, if whatever my kids choose is their decision.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think that's,
Mhm.
that's how I would raise my kids too, ultimately, when and if the time comes that I have kids. So we're
Mhm.
about out of time, so we'll just go ahead and wrap up here. But thank you so much for sharing your stories and your experience. And I hope that I don't know how many of my subscribers were also raised Hindu. I'm sure I actually have like a
Mhm.
lot of viewers from India, I think. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so maybe I have to check the stats again, but so maybe a lot of people can relate to this and just see. And, my goal with making these videos is for people who have grown up in like extreme religions or toxic religions or just religious to any degree and maybe have some like fears about getting into the occult, just seeing from other people, who also grew up religious in whatever religion and whatever extremity, and see their journey in it and how it's now okay, and it's okay to explore and be curious. Like I promote
Mhm.
on my channel a lot that stay kind, stay curious thing, because curiosity is killed essentially if you are blindly following a faith without questioning anything. So
Mhm.
I enjoy having your inquisitive mind on this channel, and I look forward to when we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, I love being on here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I
Yeah.
love coming on here and I love talking to your viewers. I like reading the comments too. So
Yeah.
thank you, Pixie. You have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Happy
have a great one.
Thanksgiving. Yeah. Happy November. And thank you again. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.